You know, every year it seems like the Paris-Nice video gets longer. Whatever. BMC's Rohan Dennis is the hour record holder in part because his TT position just does not move. A bit of hesitation on some corners, but he stood just once on the course's modest climb. Notorious aero bar climber Richie Port of Sky was out of the saddle repeatedly and finished 15 seconds down. But in a race of 8 minutes, not 60, Ajax Quickstep's Michał Kwiatkowski's ability to rail corners and crank watts can compensate for the fact his climbing position resembles a Stairmaster. While others got arrow for the finished stretch, he stood the whole way, power taking the stage over Dennis's finesse by 31 hundredths of a second. On stage 1, the expected crosswinds never materialized, making it a good day for full bladders and Thomas Voeckler's Europcar jersey. Even EQS's Tom Bonin clipping a teammate's wheel to crash himself out of the classics at 17k to go didn't foster urgency, as Sky's Brad Wiggins illustrated a mere 5 kilometers from the line. Chaos reigned after the catch, but no bother to Katusha's Alexander Kristoff, who will just slide over and take Lotto's train to the front of the field, cool as can be. As the giant Alpecin train finally materialized, Kristoff doesn't quite get John Degenkolb's wheel, but again, minimal flailing, he just slots in behind Cofidis Nasser Buhani. This turns out to be great as Degenkolb goes too early, then holds up Buhani while Kristoff is accelerating, and that's all the advantage the Katusha rider needs. What can you say about a day when the solo breakaway loses interest 37k from the line? Cannondale Garmin at least tried to do something, which put a hurt on FDJ's Sébastien Chavanel, but the Frenchman, as well as the rest of the field, held tough. Cannondale capitulated after 15k, but EQS's Tony Martin took a flyer 6k later, joined rapidly by some alarmingly good company. Lotto Soudal brought them to heel 1.6k out, and Orica Greenedge took over under the red kite for Michael Matthews, but A-plus work from the battered Chavanel got teammate Arnaud Demar onto Andre Greipel's wheel right as the Lotto rider's teammate Jos van Emden buried the other leadouts. Demar was creeping up on the German champ all the way to the line, but couldn't quite get around for the win. BMC's Philippe Gilbert picked off early KOMs, Voeckler and Bretagne Séché and Veremont's Florian Vachon were happy to soak up the camera time. A bit of disorder followed the catch at 10k to go, but the pack didn't panic. Giant Alpecin formed up, OGE chipped in, the late escape was caught, and the Aussie team did crit-like lead-out work, using the length of their train in corners and riders pulling off before narrow sections to limit the passing options. Matthews' final launch does appear to come around the long way, prompting him to pinch in on Trek Factory Racing's Giacomo Mazzolo, but the win was convincing and the bonuses gave the OGE rider the overall lead. GC Day, Lotto's Thomas DeGent mopped up KOMs, Ajay Desert did a ton of chasing, but no shocker to see Sky's kits appearing around 9k to go, and Yellow Jersey Matthews getting dropped 3k later. But surprises would come. When Sky's Nick Roche finally pulls off, Geraint Thomas attacks, suddenly putting the chase burden on everyone else. Astana's Jakob Fulsong and Katusha's Simon Spielach bridged, but when BMC's TJ Van Garderen attacked, the rest of the group finally responded. Despite the best efforts of Movistar's Ruben Fernandez to keep the chase back, Port finally connected with the BMC rider, who spent maybe a bit too much time towing the group before pulling off. Kwiatkowski was the next to take up pacemaking, but sits up after a failed attack, prompting a counter from Port. Thomas, somewhat miraculously, managed to jump to Port's wheel and hold on to finish second. Kwiatkowski came across 7 seconds later with Fulsong, retaking the GC lead by just a second ahead of the stage winner. More climbs, more DeGent grabbing KOMs, EQS managing the gap, Cofidis and Trek chipping in a bit, sensing the last chance for their sprinters, but GC teams BMC and Sky took over on a climb inside the final 10k to keep the lid on attacks. Meanwhile, DeGent had no intention of being caught, dropping brakemates one by one until he was alone in the final K. As the pack closes, you can see Europcar's Brian Coquard going anyway but straight and doing it all in the wind at the front, but he's also the first to jump right as DeGent is caught and seems to catch everyone else flat-footed. Still, that's a long time without a draft, even in a tailwind, and he bogs just enough in the closing meters that Lampre's Davide Cimolai sneaks around for the win. That is a lot of climbing. Early break with Lotto's just 125 down on GC, Tim Wellens forcing EQS to chase, which frankly Kwiatkowski would rather do splitting the field on a wet descent than grinding it down on the way back up. Sky let the gap go, Kwiatkowski's group caught the break 34k out and began the final climb with a 28-second margin over Port. The Yellow Jersey's last teammate fell off 4k later, and Lotto, seeing the writing on the wall, sent Tony Galopin up the road. Sky and Port made the catch, the pace eased, and a series of flyers and counters eventually gapped Kwiatkowski, but also played into Galopin's hands as he started the descent. On the way back down, Port slid out, probably shouldn't have pedaled there, but has a panic-free recovery. Thomas, seen here attempting to fix the damage, crashed a few K later, making the two de facto teammates of the very GC leader they'd been trying to unseat minutes earlier while they all chased Galopin. The Frenchman took the stage around a minute ahead, cannily giving himself the GC lead by 36 seconds going into the final stage. Which, did I mention, is an uphill time trial that Port won by 20 plus seconds back in 2013. Not a lot I can say here. I mean, look at that booty. Would you want to drag that up a Cat 1 climb? Plus, no aero visor, huge gap between the helmet and the back. It's a stark contrast to Kwiatkowski, who takes a far more aerodynamically sound approach than in the prologue, and a world of difference from Port, who might actually be a robot sent back from the future to dominate this particular event. Port went on to take the stage and the overall, while Kwiatkowski held on for 5th, taking 2nd on GC ahead of Spilak and Lampres Rui Costa in a bizarre 4-way tie broken on fractions of a second from the two TTs. I'm Cosmo Catalano, and that's how the race was won.